What a difference a year makes. We'll talk about a recent ranking surprising everybody associated with the New York Islanders and the impact it'll have on the team. We've got that and a lot more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us to talk a little Islanders hockey today, and we have got a lot to discuss. The Athletic came out with its annual ranking of the top 100 drafted prospects in the NHL. And boy, what a difference a year makes. We'll break down that ranking, where the Islanders stand, and what it means for the team. Plus, one of the Islanders' 3 first-round draft picks signs his ELC with the team, and we continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders' draft picks. We go in-depth to scout Luca Romano. Let's start with the Athletics rankings. And this may come as a surprise to people who have been following the Islanders over the last few years. And yet, if you've been following closely this offseason, like I said earlier, what a difference a year makes. The Athletic put out its top 100 drafted NHL prospects ranking. And it's done twice a year. And essentially, here we go. 24 of the 100 players were from this year's draft, 26 from last year, 25 from 2023, and 21 from 2022. 67 forwards, 33 defensemen. So that's the ranking. They go from 1 to 100. Each NHL team should have roughly 3 players. So based on 32 teams, 100 spots, that is where it should roughly average out. And the New York Islanders had 5 players. Now, the Blackhawks had 7, and the Predators and Capitals had 6. So there were some teams with more, but the Islanders having 5 players on this list speaks volumes about the job that Matthew Darche has done rebuilding the prospect pipeline. And this is not, the ranking 1 to 32 of the best prospect pools in the league. But remember, 2 years ago, the Islanders were dead last. And that's what happens when you trade away 4 consecutive first-round draft picks. And then after Cole Yzerman fell to the Islanders a year ago, they went up to, the mid to late 20s. But now, 5 players in the top 100. A year ago, it was 1. And just to add to it, all 5 players are in the top 34. So at 34, Kashan Aitchison, first-round pick defenseman this year. At number 32, Cole Yzerman, who was on that list last year. Number 31, Cal Ritchie, who wasn't with the Islanders last year, but was added at the trade deadline in the Brock Nelson deal. Number 21 on this list, Victor Eklund, another of the Islanders' first-round picks this year. And the number one drafted prospect, according to The Athletic, is Matthew Schaefer, ranking him first overall here. Again, in order to make this list, you can't be an NHL regular yet. So Schaefer topping the list at number one. The Islanders have 5 players on this list. And look, it is too soon at this point to say how successful Matthew Darche is going to be getting this team from where they were under Lou Lamoriello, kind of stuck in the muddy middle, to where he hopes they're going to go, which is a perennial playoff and cup contender. It is going to take time, and we won't know how well he's drafted and how well the Islanders can develop these players for several years. And we are in a retool almost without question. The Islanders have said, yeah, we want to remain competitive while we retool, but this is a retool. And you can't judge Matthew Darche too much on how this team does in the standings this coming season. But reorganizing and replenishing the prospect pool is huge. It's one of 2 big things that we can credit Matthew Darche with, even though he's only been on the job for a couple of months. One is replenishing the prospect pool. And this article from The Athletic reinforces that the experts in the hockey world agree that Matthew Darche has done this. When you've got 5 of the top 34 drafted prospects in the league, and number 1 overall, you're doing something right. And then the other thing that I think Matthew Darche has done very well is increase communication. And look, under Lou Lamoriello, the Islanders players were restricted as to social media. They were restricted as to appearing on podcasts and doing interviews. And those are the ways that you market your players to your fans. It's the interaction that they have that makes special moments and draws fans in. And, even something simple like this, okay? I'm making this up, but something simple. A player on the Islanders, let's say Matthew Barzal, just for argument's sake, makes a post on social media and you make a reply as a fan, and Barzal likes your reply, maybe even responds to your reply. Something that small is a big moment for fans. Having the general manager or the players or the coaches being interviewed and talking to the media and, giving you their feelings and their thoughts, these are ways to connect the players and the team to the fan base. And look, Lou Lamoriello is from a different generation. He does things differently. And yet, I think there was sort of a disconnect in a lot of ways in the past. And now we are seeing that change. So these 2 big things, having all these prospects out of the 5 players listed in the top 34, only 1 realistically is going to play for the Islanders this year, and that's Matthew Schaefer. And we're not sure, A, if he makes the team out of training camp, B, if he plays more than the 9 games that you're allowed to play without blowing a year on your ELC. There's a lot of questions, but realistically, there is hope. And on the ice this year, this team may not be substantially better than they were a year ago. There is room for improvement if everybody stays healthy, if certain players improve. There are reasons they could be a little bit better, but not like they're not going to go from missing the playoffs by 9 points to getting 115 points in the standings. It's unlikely. You're still a team in the middle of the NHL standings based on the talent level right now. But there's hope. There is a future that looks bright. There are players that you're excited to see how and when they arrive on the island and what impact they're going to have. And for a fan base, we have an older team that either barely makes or barely misses the playoffs. And there's nobody on the horizon that excites you to 2 years later having the number one drafted prospect and 5 of the top 34. Even if the Islanders are worse this year on the ice than they were a year ago, there's reason to believe that the future looks bright. And this is a great surprise for the New York Islanders. And again, hopefully it is something that really ends up working for this team. And in 2-3 years, we really start to see results. All right. We have got more to get to on today's show. One of the Islanders' 3 first-round picks in this year's draft has already signed their ELC. We'll talk about that. We'll continue our player-by-player analysis of the Islanders' draft picks with Luca Romano. We've got that and a lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you could save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endless scrolling trying to find the best deal? Game Time's Zone Deals picks the best seats in your section for you. Ever wonder what the view will look like before you buy the tickets? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you pay. There's no hidden fees. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So since our last show, and again, we are on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule now for the next few weeks during the offseason. But since our last show, Victor Eklund has signed a contract with the New York Islanders, the 16th overall pick in the draft. As with all ELCs, it's a 3-year entry-level deal. And look, here's the thing about that. He's not playing in North America this year. That is not what this deal means. He is going to play in Sweden and probably will come over in a year to North America, 2026, 2027. And depending on how he does in Sweden this year, depending on how he does in training camp when he does come over to North America, all of that will impact whether or not he's on the Islanders next year or whether he is in the AHL next year, whether that's, whether the AHL team is still in Bridgeport, whether the rumors are true and they move to Hamilton. All of that We don't know. But Eklund is one of those guys. He needs to put on some weight. He's 5'11", 170 pounds. But the way he plays, it's kind of similar to his brother William, who plays for the Sharks. William, 22 now, had 17 goals and 58 points last year with San Jose, and he just signed a 3-year extension at a $5.6 million a year AAV. So, look, Eklund projects as a second-line player. That's kind of his ceiling right now in the NHL. The 3 years does not start tolling until he comes to North America. So if he spends, this year in Sweden, next year, he will still have 3 years left on his entry-level contract. If he spends another year in Sweden, then 2 years from now, we would start his entry-level contract. Overall, all good, but look, you got to sign these guys. The big question perhaps is, when does Matthew Schaefer sign? Because, if he wants to play in the NHL this year, and it is apparent that Schaefer does want to do that, then he's got to sign. And, we're waiting. Still no official word on that, but I expect it gets done at some point in the next few weeks, and certainly before training camp. Now, he can't really sign a contract till he's 18, so that's, it can't officially happen until September, first couple of days in September, but that will happen. And again, you're building up this prospect pool for the New York Islanders. You got Eklund under contract, Aitchison still waiting on Schaefer, but again, got to be patient because he has to become an adult first to actually legally be able to sign his name. Go figure, right? 17-year-old ranked as the number 1 prospect. Gotta love it. But that's what we're seeing right now is, again, just sort of step by step, putting the pieces in place for the New York Islanders to just start digging out of that messy, muddy middle and making progress, to say the least. So we'll see. We'll see, how it all plays out. But I am very happy that Victor Eklund has signed. And again, we move forward, getting hope for the future, and it's great. By the way, according to Puckpedia, the NHL salary for Eklund, $877,500, signing bonus of $97,500. He gets $85,000 a year if he plays in the minors, and again, that is some of the details of this deal. But great to see that, these guys are lining up and joining the Islanders, and that's what we need to see. Progress being made as the franchise moves forward. So happy with that, without a doubt. And we look forward to more signings and more progress being made. We have got more to get to. We'll continue our player-by-player scouting report on the Islanders 2025 draft. Luca Romano is up now. And for our Islanders birthday of the day, one of the few NHL players born in England who was with the Islanders in the early to mid-1990s. We'll talk about him and his impact on the team. All that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Monarch Money. Ever wish managing your money felt easier? With Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You could track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. I mean, the thing I love is having all that financial information available in one place on the app. And if you share your finances with someone, your significant other, your spouse, Monarch can help you stay on the same page. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Check out monarchmoney.com today. All right, we continue our look at the Islanders 2025 draft class. We are doing one player per show, and we take deep dives into each player, their strengths and weaknesses, what they need to do to reach the NHL, and a whole lot more. And today, we talk about third-round pick Luca Romano. He is listed as a center. He turned 18 back in June, a native of Toronto, 5'11", 177 pounds. Played for the Kitchener Rangers last year, 25 goals, 51 points in 67 games, had 6 goals, and 11 points in 16 playoff games. Romano is perhaps he was a great value pick for the New York Islanders. And, you know, he was the 74th overall pick. He is a very, very smart hockey player. He has good speed. Again, that is something the Islanders needed to add. With everydayers, you know, we've talked about younger, faster, more skilled. And, you know, he just makes smart plays with the puck, has that high hockey IQ. And, you know, he's not going to, you know, fake out guys on an end-to-end rush necessarily, but he shoots and passes well when moving quickly. And, you know, a lot of scouts had a second-round grade on Romano, but the Islanders were able to get him midway through the third round. And, you know, that's a solid thing. Some scouts have compared him to J.G. Pageau because of his size and his ability to produce some offense while still being very responsible defensively. And look, he's probably a third line kind of a player, maybe, you know, a middle six. Maybe he can get up to the second line depending on how he develops. But I just love the value of this player and what he can bring to the table. And the thread that you see throughout the draft picks that Matthew Darche has added and the way he's building this organization up, more speed, more willingness to go into the dirty areas, more players who are going to be difficult to play against, who are determined, who are, you know, guys who are going to fight for loose pucks, make smart plays. And look, it doesn't guarantee anything. It is always possible that this player does never plays a game in the NHL. But the draft, when you're drafting 18-year-olds, seeing how they're going to project at 22, 25, 30, it's like throwing darts at a dartboard. You're not going to hit on all of them, but if you hit on half or a little more than half, you hit 60% in your draft, you're doing unbelievably well. And I'm even only talking about the first 2 or 3 rounds. But I just like the blueprint that Matthew Darche is introducing. And I really get the feeling that Romano is going to fit in well with this organization. And I love it. I just love seeing the way the organization is building up. And Luca Romano absolutely fits right in. And, here's another situation that I really kind of like. The New York Islanders have a number of prospects working together this offseason, according to the Hockey News. Right now, you've got Aitchison, 17th overall pick, skating with Bo Horvat. Also, Dylan Cousins, a few other people. They're going to work together this offseason. Matthew Schaefer working with Adam Pelech this offseason, and Mark Giordano. And Isaiah George also working with Schaefer and Pelech. These are little things, but they can help. Even if it's just a team building exercise, but it definitely benefits the young kids to be working with some of these veterans. All right, time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. And yesterday, Tuesday, was the 62nd birthday of former Islanders winger Steve Thomas. Again, Stockport, England is where he's from. He was 5'11", $185. Made his NHL debut during the 84-85 season with Toronto, got moved to the Blackhawks, and then joined the Islanders in the 91-92 season pretty early on. Stayed on the island through the 94-95 campaign, scored 37 goals in 92-93, including 17 points in 18 playoff games during that long conference final run, and then 42 goals and 75 points the following year in 93-94. So Steve Thomas, at the height of his productivity with the Islanders, played in 1,235 NHL games, 421 goals, 933 points, 1,306 penalty minutes, had 54 goals and 107 points in 174 playoff games. One of his best games as an Islander. Let's look at a game from that 1993 playoff run, Game 6 of the Islanders Penguins series. And in the second round, Islanders down 3-2 at the Coliseum. Tom Barrasso and Glenn Healy are the netminders. But in this game, our Islanders birthday of the day, with the score tied 2-2, Islanders on a power play, and Steve Thomas sets up Ray Ferraro in the second period to put the Islanders ahead by a 3-2 margin. 4 minutes later, Thomas scores on an Islanders power play. Tom Curvers and Benoit Hogue with the assists. Islanders go up 4-2, but then the Penguins score 2 goals to tie it. Heading into the third, Steve Thomas then sets up Brian Mullen for a go-ahead goal and then scores again. Ray Ferraro and Derek King with the assists. The Islanders go on to win the game 7-5 in a must-win game to keep their playoff hopes alive and force a Game 7 for Steve Thomas. 2 goals, 2 assists. That's a 4-point game. He scored the game-winning goal, and he led the Islanders, or tied for the team lead with Brian Mullen, with 6 shots on goal. He had 1 power play goal and 1 even strength goal in this game. Glenn Healy made 31 saves. Islanders win it by a score of 7-5. Steve Thomas, a really solid offensive contributor for the Islanders in the early to mid-90s. He is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season, so we're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR/VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and it's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we're back Friday. We will have a mailbag then, so we have some good questions, but please send in a few more. Always great to hear from you and to answer what's on your mind about the New York Islanders. And we'll also continue our player-by-player look at the Islanders draft class of 2025 as we move up into the second round. Make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.